Good afternoon, Luang Por.
Good afternoon, Ajahn Sumedho.
Thank you for taking some time for a Q&A. Today is Friday the 16th of May, and today's question arises out of a conversation we had some time ago, where you were pointing out how being human is really an emotional experience. It's not rational, it's feeling, experience and relationships. How does that inform the attitude and the intention to practice and use the Buddha's teachings and the Four Noble Truths?
It's important to be aware of emotion without criticizing it, without saying it's good or bad, because that's the nature of this realm, the human realm, the earthly realm. This is a feeling experience, not an ideal, rational experience. So most of our life we have to live with emotions. We can be offended or pleased according to how people look at us or what they say. And, this is quite natural. Like anger, the emotion like anger is a perfectly natural emotion, which is part of the human practice. It's not something you acquire, it's something that happens according to conditions. But awareness is our ability to be aware of emotion rather than judging it or trying to suppress it. So like when we talk about awareness and awareness of emotion, it's just this simple recognition that anger is like this, or fear, or love, or attachment to certain things. It's the way it is. And, to be the aware, the Buddha aware of the way it is that it's a condition that arises according to other conditions, and then it's empty and impermanent and not personal. So we continually instruct ourselves, like living in a community, monastic community like Amaravati. You can't help but have feelings about the relationships with other monks, with nuns, with lay people, that are according to conditions. When you're all alone, you don't have you don't have that kind of experience of love or hate around others, but you can still imagine, like living in a kuti all by yourself in the forest, you can still bring up anger or resentment according to memories of past experience that was very unpleasant or unfair. So in meditation then is seeing the nature of emotion rather than is impermanent, rather than good or bad, right or wrong. Because as soon as you say good or bad, right or wrong, then you're qualifying it, you're thinking it and judging it according to the way you're conditioned. But when you're just the Bhutto, the awareness in the present, then a good emotion is impermanent and a bad emotion is impermanent. So Luang Por used to say, good meditation is good and bad meditation is good. And it was a joke. Because how many meditators only want good meditation, and when their meditation isn't good, they're judging it. They're thinking, my meditation isn't any good, and I don't want this. And so it becomes personal rather than merely Dhamma, the arising and ceasing of phenomena, which is this realm that we experience through the senses, through the bodies that we tend to, we've been conditioned to identify with as very personal.
When these emotions arise, does it matter that they have a storyline, and is the storyline worth investigating, or is it okay to just completely drop that and really just focus on noticing the arising, the establishment, and the cessation of the emotion?
Better just to observe the emotion, the feeling of anger or fear, and not try to analyze it. Because in the past I was abused, I feel this, then it becomes analytical and personal.
And it goes back into thinking.
It's thinking. That's all about thinking. And thinking is acquired. It's not a natural condition that we experience. You have to have language.
So coming back just to the emotion itself and how we experience it, just feeling it in the body and opening to the space, or how do you work with these things?
Just relax. Don't try to do anything with it, but just be the witness. It's the way it is, and if you just let it alone, don't grasp it, then you begin to see that it's just a condition arising and ceasing. Otherwise, when you try to figure out why you're angry or resentful or frightened, then you start thinking, and it becomes very personal. It might be clever analysis, and it might even be true, but it's not the way to be free from anger, allow anger to arise and cease, rather than trying to figure out why you as a person feel anger when these conditions arise, because then that takes your personality, your thinking, your education, your karmic tendencies all come into becoming what you identify with, which is an illusion.
So in opening up to these emotions, one thing that seems to happen to everyone really is the desire to let it go, especially the go part. And we fall back into the vibhava, trying to get rid of it.
Yeah, that's very important to witness that. Trying to get rid of fear and anger, resentment. Because that's what we call vipawadana. It's a desire to get rid of what you don't like. And that's the same way as attaching to it. So you can something makes you angry, then you grasp it and you figure, you get very angry, and what do you think about how unfair and unjust that condition is, and you get involved, and that's grasping it. And then vipawadana is trying to get rid of it. Well, it happened long ago, it doesn't matter, forget about it, get on with your life. These are the ways These are the ways we deal with Vipuadana.
Sometimes with these emotions, some people express the difficulty of understanding the instructions, but then in terms of experience, feeling drawn into and caught up with the stickiness of the emotions. Do you have any advice about how to kind of maybe open up the picture in terms of space and silence, and like what's the useful, what do people do when they feel that they're all stuck to the emotion?
Well, it's learning to accept it in a relaxed way, not personal. It's like the way it is. It's, you can't really help the way you feel. You don't choose your feelings. If we had a choice, we'd always feel, well, we'd be more rational and liberal and idealistic about it. And everybody suffers in life, and we're all going to die anyway. And these are all, comforting thoughts. But also they're thoughts, and thoughts are just empty phenomena. And no matter how right the thoughts might be, they are impermanent and empty, no matter how grand or noble and ideal, or how horrible, dirty, and vile they might be. They're like compared to soap bubbles or foam on the sea. And it's important to see the emptiness of language, because we are a thinking creature, and we've got all this IT and high tech, and at this stage of our human development, we've got all ways of discussing interesting, fascinating conditions to entertain ourselves. We listen to the news, and we hear about the problems in the world, and it's disturbing. To think of all the starving Sudanese, or the Palestinians, and things like this lead us to, how does that affect you, personally? And, to think of starving children is a very unpleasant thought, because when they never talk about starving men, they talk about starving women, mothers, and children, because that is more emotive than a lot of starving men. But men starve too, and so starvation is something, very unpleasant. If you've ever fasted or been in a situation where you have no access to food, it must be terrifying. Or especially if your mother, your father, trying to feed your children, your family, that would be really a terrible experience to be caught in that, watching your family starve to death. But that's happening in the world. You hear about it in the news. And, then you think it's wrong, it shouldn't be. That's thinking again that's right. We shouldn't let people starve. We should have compassion. There's enough food for everybody. This is, noble thinking, but it is thinking. And as long as we believe our thoughts, then we are caught in those emotions. And we get depressed. We get just listening to the BBC World Service every morning. It can be quite depressing to hear all the wars and problems that go on planet Earth at this time. And then you living here in England, we're having very nice weather, and we can have good food provided for us, and lovely flower gardens to live in. And then you can think, you can even start feeling guilty about living in a nice place with plenty to eat, while other places are all starving to death. And you can just observe your tendency to proliferate, conceptually proliferate around ideas, good ideas, or we can be angry and want to take sides in the wars and problems of the planet, and that makes us feel we want to annihilate the enemy, get rid of Hamas, destroy send all the gangsters and unwanted immigrants to a prison in El Salvador. That's how the mind works. Get them away from me, from us, is, desire to get rid of what you don't like. Where it is words, like just the word El Salvador is a word. And that's a fact, and most of us have never been there, so we don't know. But it has a kind of ominous resonance to it. And that's a feeling, the feeling of ominous is like this. And it doesn't mean you don't care or aren't concerned about the world, but it's saying that the samsara, the experience of human existence or animal or world existence is, about feelings, taking sides, about identifying with a tribe, with a nationality, with a religion, and these identities, we form strong identities of being righteous, and we've got to protect ourselves from the enemy. And so we see others who don't agree with us as the enemy, and then you want to get rid of them. I don't want to associate with people like that. I want them to go and live in some faraway place that I'll never visit. And these are understandable emotions. I'm not condemning them, but they are to be witnessed to, because the witness isn't emotional. Like pure conscious awareness is not emotional. Emotions are very changeable. They change according to other conditions that are constantly changing. So the attempts to have peace talks and peace accords and make everything fair and just is noble thinking, but it is thinking. And then I'm encouraging you to be the observer of thought rather than the owner of the thoughts that you have.
So when emotions and stuff get sticky like that, is it mostly due to the thinking?
Oh yes. And thinking will create a feeling, being stuck and just certain words irritate us or please us. And just noticing how, when people praise you, it's like this. When people criticize you, it's like this. When people abuse you, it's like this. I used to watch how if I was accused of something I hadn't done, I didn't do, I feel really indignant and righteous. Like, how dare you? Where if because of my nature, if I'm criticized for something I've done, I'm willing to apologize. I make that agreement with myself. If somebody criticizes me or blames me for something I've done wrong, then I'm willing to apologize. But you still feel you're being criticized. And then, and that's an unpleasant feeling. Where being praised is, oh, you're a really good teacher, you're wise, you're good looking, you're healthy, we really like you. And these are all likable compliments or praises, whether it's obsequious. And somehow I personally don't like obsequity. It gets pretty sticky. But then being blamed for something I haven't done, and I feel, how dare you, and just willing to observe that. I would say to myself, I'd think to myself, how dare you criticize me for that? I did nothing to do with it. And I listen to this reaction I have of righteous indignation is like this. And I'm willing to deliberately be righteously indignant just to be aware of it, rather than just trying to get rid of it or be, think, well, life has its ups and downs and we just have to get on with it, which is true, but it's not, but that's another thought that we tend to justify what goes on rather than observing the actual reality of what arises, ceases, whether it's pleasant, unpleasant, fair, or unfair.
You often speak about space and silence. How do you how do you open up to emotions in the context of space and silence?
Well, silence is here and now, and it's uncreated. You don't create silence. Space is here and now, but we can perceive space. So we can look at the space in the room or outside the kuti, this room is in space, or there's space in this room, or space in the sala is a big space, or space it doesn't really have any size. It has no beginning or ending, but one can perceive it, and it's empty. Space accepts anything, whether it's good or bad people or good people, saints or devils. And space doesn't really care whether you're good or bad, ugly or beautiful. It's just here and now, and it's worth reflecting upon. And like silence, you can't perceive silence, but you can't, because that's your true nature, is conscious awareness, is silent. And it's beyond language, beyond space. And so conscious awareness allows us to be aware of space. If we weren't conscious, if there was no consciousness, there'd be no, being able to see space, to observe space. But try to observe consciousness. As an object, you can't do it. But you can know consciousness by letting go of space and forms. And that doesn't mean annihilating them. It means relaxing and not trying to hold on or get rid of any thoughts or feelings, but just to, the real words are letting go of everything. All that you can conceive and perceive through your senses or mind is empty phenomena. It's not, it's not what it seems. So when we're holding on to grudges or ideals, we're holding on to emptiness. It has a form, but it's not like anything real or solid or ultimately true. It depends on conditions that arise and cease. And the Buddha constantly pointed to this reality, that all conditions are impermanent. And that is wisdom. So suddenly he gives us a wisdom teaching, because this you can prove through meditation. You begin to just be the witness to the way it is, rather than trying to make things what you want them to be. Like with meditation, wanting a good meditation, and wanting to get samadhi, wanting to get rid of defilements. These are all create a sense of a personal, a good practicer or a bad practicer. So we create a self about meditation. So that question about should you get samadhi first and then vipassana, and these are intellectual questions. But their true nature, samadhi and vipassana, are words created, they're sankharas. And the Buddha's teaching, after his enlightenment, is about suffering and the causes of suffering. And these you can witness with wisdom, because just that all conditions are impermanent is wisdom. Because when you investigate, when you try to find a condition that's permanent, you can't do it. It's impossible. So like all words are impermanent. The word Buddha is a creation, as a form. So if we just cling to the word Buddha, it can bring maybe a sense of peace or faith or hope or love. But we must even let go of the word Buddha Dhamma Sangha to be just the awareness itself. That we don't create. That's the uncreated, unborn, unconditioned.
Sometimes in the practice, when one opens up to these emotions and they really arise, they can seem like coming in a context where no trick, no technique of meditation or practice will really put a dent in them. They seem so convincing and so real. In these cases, just kind of keeping in mind that it's a sankhara condition that has arisen and just waiting for it to cease. Is that a valid way to go to the core of it?
Yeah, well, even trying to define it and what to do, just letting go and being are still words. So, yeah, it's impossible to really figure it out. But words like trust in awareness, space is a good reflection because it has no beginning. You can't find a beginning or ending of space, but you can perceive it. And like it doesn't say anything. Space is empty. It doesn't, it's not about good or bad, right or wrong, or friends or enemies. The space is like this. So, then space gives you a sense of just, I would repeat to myself, there's nothing to do. Not going anywhere, nothing to do. Because my early years of monastic life, I was always trying to do something. Meditation meant getting something. Good meditation was a reward for practicing, and that's desirable. And bad meditation, then you feel, oh, my meditation's really bad. I just sit there in the meditation hall and think and feel sorry for myself and feel angry about past events, and I don't want any of that. So then you're still creating a sense of identity and judgment where relax, don't have to go anywhere, do anything. Like that's more like a Zen approach. I've got to get samadhi first. And then let go of that. Let's see, who has to get samadhi first? What is it that gets samadhi? And questioning is a good way to investigate the rising and ceasing of thoughts, of emotions.
Sumedho, thank you for sharing these reflections.